Are we truly alone in the universe? It's one of humanity's greatest questions, and one that has a plethora of proof for both sides. Join us as we have a look at some artifacts that were found on Earth and believed to be alien. Number 7. The Williams Enigmalith. Now, while there have been plenty of hoaxes throughout history about whether aliens do in fact exist or not, there are also some that even make the heavy skeptics scratch their heads. That's because they have no idea what they're actually looking at. One of them is called the Williams Enigmalith, which is a weird name, but it's earned that nickname because it's currently one of the most curious and puzzling artifacts ever found. A man by the name of John Williams would be hiking in North America in 1998 when he stumbled upon something that simply could not be explained. It was a rock with an apparent electrical component sticking out of it. Now, some may believe that it was trash, but it hardly was, because the electrical component was not the typical plug or any kind of other electrical device. In fact, the device was embedded into the rock, and for the record, the rock in question is solid granite. So how exactly did it get there? Many have tried to figure this conundrum out, and though Williams will not sell the rock, even though he's been offered $500,000 to do so, he's let others examine it. And what they found is actually kind of odd. In all actuality, Williams is hesitant to reveal where he found the rock. He has confirmed that it was in North America and in an area that's miles away from civilization, but aside from that, he refuses to give any kind of true clues. Because of this, many people disregard it as a hoax, but to those who have studied it, it's not quite that simple. Number 6. The Russian UFO Tooth Wheel. In Russia, near Vladivostok, a man was trying to begin a fire with a piece of coal. However, as he did, he began to notice that there was something sticking out of the coal. That's when he realized that it was metal. But don't worry, this is something different. And then he examined it. As it turns out, the object was handmade and appeared to be part of a tooth wheel. As this was Russia, there were objects thrown all about where he was, and some of them were machinery. So it wouldn't have stuck out as being odd, though it was actually curious. Thus, he then took it to some scientists, and what they discovered was absolutely incredible. As it turns out, the piece that he found was solid aluminum, and a very pure form of it, which in and of itself is something interesting. But when scientists continued to dig deeper, that's when they came to claim that the object was over 300 million years old. Because of its shape, it was clearly handmade, but that's impossible if the aluminum is that old, right? What's more, aluminum wasn't able to be made by humans until around 1825, yet the piece itself looks like something that's been used in modern instruments, but yet doesn't look like a modern instrument itself. Number 5. Incan aeroplanes. The Incas, along with other tribes, have left many remnants of their civilizations behind, some of which are on full display, while certain golden objects are left to be examined and theorized. Now, as you can see, this trinket does look like a full-on aeroplane, or even a jet. You can see the body of the plane, the wings, and even the tail fins. So, what exactly were they trying to make? Some experts have speculated that these are intricate depictions of animals, but what animal would it be resembling? And even more, multiple tribes actually had very similar objects. So what were they all seeing that the rest of the world didn't at that time? As of now, there's still a lot of speculation on what it all could mean, or really what it couldn't. Did these tribes actually see something? Believe it to be a god and then craft the items as tribute? Were they simply bored and had a creative mind? Or was it something else that we can't possibly ponder? Number 4. The Somers Triumph Tapestry. Now, this is one that has a much more historical context to it and raises a lot of questions because of the definitiveness of history within. Right now, in a national museum, there's a tapestry that was made in Bruges, Belgium, around 1538. Now, the tapestry itself is said to have been a tribute to a ruler coming into power or ascending to the throne. And all of that is very standard and very typical of artists of the time. But what's the catch? Well, if you look very closely in the background, You'll also see flying saucers. Now, at first glance, one would simply think that perhaps those are clouds, but when you take a closer look, what you see may appear to be clouds, but the objects look even more like hats in the sky. What's more, even if they were some kind of clouds, it still leaves you to wonder why they would draw them in that shape or even in that color. This is where things tend to get more interesting, because we know that this was made in 1538 and was hung prominently because of its history. So how did people know of that shape? It clearly resembles what many people feel that UFO ships look like, but how would they have known that in the year 1538? If this truly was a random drawing, that's a pretty ironic shape to draw. And if it's not random, what did that painter see to make them draw that in the portrait? Number 3. The glorification of the Eucharist. If you like that painting conundrum, here's another one. If one looks closely at the painting, which was made in the 16th century, you'd likely not see anything wrong. After all, there is a lot of religious symbolism and iconography in the picture. In fact, Eucharist is actually another way of saying Holy Communion, which is definitely going on. You see God and Jesus, and a dove, which is a symbol of the Holy Spirit, along with some children that are watching them, which is pretty standard for certain religious paintings of the time. So nothing really weird, right? However, what is God and Jesus holding? Because if you look at it with impartial eyes, you're going to see a satellite. Some would even go as far to say as it looks like Sputnik, and that both God and Jesus appear to be holding the object up by its antenna. Plus, the sphere that the antenna are connected to look very metallic in a lot of areas. So what exactly is going on? A few people have come forward and said that there's a very logical and actually biblical explanation for all of it. Now, apparently in the paintings of the time, there were objects that were called Sphera Mundi, which are meant to represent the universe as a whole. So, if you look at the glowing things on the sphere, those are actually meant to be the sun and the moon. Now, as for the antenna, those are meant to be symbolistic wands, ones that show authority. No matter what you think, this is one painting that's going to be debated for quite some time to come. Number 2. Carvings and cave paintings. On a little bit more of a broad note, but one that needs to be discussed, there have been many artifacts that have been discovered over the centuries that seem to depict aliens and their ships in the skies, even full-on depictions of aliens themselves. Now, lest you think this was a random occurrence, it's happened in multiple parts of the world, and is a similar occurrence to how many different cultures depicted dragons, even though they had never come into contact with one beforehand. Some examples of this include carvings from the Mayan people, though some believe these were frauds, and others come from the Native Americans. In fact, some cave paintings were found in Utah by 2 different Native American tribes and depict beings from the stars. These particular paintings were found many times over and match up with certain stories that are found in other cultures all over the world. And here's another odd clue for you. Many of the tribes that depicted these star beings can also be found on a perfect meridian, 108 to be exact. Experts believe that that shouldn't at all be possible, so was it merely coincidence or a cosmic intervention? The stories of the star people claim that they came to Earth, created life, and then took off. And if these star beings did actually create life all over the world, it could be entirely possible that they followed a meridian line for ease. Number 1. The BETZ Mystery Sphere. Now, this may be the most famous one of them all, and though many have debunked its claim as an alien object, there are still some mysteries as to what it actually was. And the best part of the story is part horror, so be ready to be spooked. The BETZ family were as ordinary as one could be, owning a lot of land, when one day a fire broke out with absolutely no explanation and destroyed a lot of their woodland. When they went to check out what happened, they would find a sphere on the ground. Now, the sphere looked to be perfectly made, except for one marking that was displayed on a side. Curious, the family then decided to bring it home and thought that there was nothing odd about it. But that's when things get interesting. One day, the son started to play some music, and the sphere actually reacted, and did so in such a way that it resonated a sound that even pierced the dog's ears. Furthermore, it would roll in such a way that it made it seem as though it were alive. It also apparently had moods and was more alive during bright days, making the family think that it also absorbed light. After a while, though, more weird things would begin happening. Doors would close, though no one was near them. Music would play in the house when no one was near an instrument, and needless to say, they began to be freaked out. Eventually, they took the object to the military, who found nothing odd about the ball outside of its surprising quality, and that made many feel that it was a hoax. A lot of people came up with explanations that seemed to show what exactly the sphere was, including an art prop that was accidentally lost a few years prior. However, as good as they are, it still doesn't explain everything that happened. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and leave a like and a comment on this video so that you get more in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.